The Clinton Foundation has accepted at least $1 million from Exxon Mobil. So why, you ask, would Hillary Clinton call for a federal investigation on Exxon Mobil? See, as it turns out, the company neglected to renew its sponsorship. But I'm sure that that's completely unrelated. Here to tell us more about this complete coincidence is Alana Goodman of the Washington Free Beacon. Welcome to the program. I'm sure it's just all a very innocent coincidence that right after a couple of months after Exxon Mobil says, you know, we don't really want to sponsor your Clinton Global Initiative annual meeting, that she now says, well, we need to. The woman who blamed a video for Benghazi says we need to investigate Exxon Mobil for misleading the public on climate change. Coincidence?
Yeah. It is interesting timing. I mean, this is something that was pointed out by the International Business Times, and also I wrote about it at the Washington Free Beacon, that, you know, just a little bit over a month after ExxonMobil declines to sponsor this meeting, they sponsored it last year, Hillary Clinton is out on the campaign trail talking about how there should be a federal investigation into what the company has been doing on climate change. So it does raise some questions. I mean, we have looked a lot into whether companies who have given money to the Clinton Foundation have received any benefits from their association with that. Another question would be, you know, what about companies who stop giving to the Clinton Foundation or decline to give to the foundation at all? I mean, are there any consequences of that? And I think that's what this issue speaks to.
And when she says that they're misleading about climate change, I mean, because to me it sounds like this is a company that's just practicing what it believes is good business. It's looking out A, for its business interests, but B, it's not saying that a theory which has divided the science community, it's not saying that it's complete fact that it can no longer be argued. I mean, it sounds like, to me, I'm trying to see where the fault is.
Yeah, it's actually even less than that. I mean, there were a couple of reports over, I think it was over the summer. The LA Times had a news article, and a couple of other outlets on ExxonMobil, their scientists that they had hired in the 1970s and 1980s to look into climate change, when climate science was really in its very, very and some of these scientists came up with, you know, they agreed with the idea that the climate was warming and that humans were contributing to this. ExxonMobil actually, I mean, they published a lot of the scientific work that these scientists were doing. These scientists raised these issues at board meetings. I mean, they were really, what the scientists were saying was really kind of on par with the field at the time.
Right.
So, I mean, the idea,
back in the 70s.
So now a lot of climate change, so a lot of climate change activists are now saying, well, this should be investigated, kind of, you know, like the cigarette companies, the tobacco companies were investigated under the RICO stuff for hiding the link between smoking and different diseases. And so that's basically what they want to do here, say that ExxonMobil should be investigated for trying to cover up climate science, because they have funded a list of organizations that have been more skeptical of the, you know, that idea that people contribute to global warming.
Right.
The funny thing is, though, I mean, if you do look at the list of these organizations that ExxonMobil has given money to, a lot of them are like the Heritage Foundation, the American Enterprise Institute, which obviously, you know, do more than just climate change issues. They cover plenty of, you know, and so to say that these are just, you know, global warming denialist groups is, I mean, in my mind, it's a bit of a stretch. So,
very much so. Is this related or similar to the Keystone Pipeline situation? Because she was so quiet about that for so long, wouldn't take a position, and then it came out that a lot of these groups that had been lobbying for that, they were donating to her, and then all of a sudden she switched, and now there's the question that, well, did the same thing happen with Keystone?
Well, I think this is interesting because, I mean, the idea that ExxonMobil had pulled out and the timing of all this is one thing, but I don't think that Hillary Clinton coming out and supporting this will really help her much on the left, supporting this federal investigation, I mean, because the Clinton Foundation has taken between $1 million and $5 million from ExxonMobil. They had at their meeting, well, ExxonMobil didn't sponsor it, they sent two of their people who sit on their board to the meeting. And Hillary Clinton is one of the top, I believe she's one of the top 5 recipients of money from the oil and gas industry. So I feel like progressives look at this and they say, well, you're saying this on the campaign trail, you know, because you're going up against Bernie Sanders and people like that. But do you actually believe it? And is this something that you would actually pursue once you get into office? Because you have been so cozy with oil and gas interests in the past. So
Right.
I mean, it does open her up to kind of charges of hypocrisy there. It's easy to say it, but you know, what do you actually do about it?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is similar to what happened on Keystone.
Do you think ExxonMobil, I mean, how is this going to pan out? Because if the AG is now listening to her calls for they need to be investigated and is going to carry out this investigation, is this going to set up to where they're just going to settle and pay them off so they go away, and then you have all of these global warming activists saying, oh, look, we won against ExxonMobil? I mean, how is this going to come out in the end?
I mean, I'm not really sure. I'm not an expert on on RICO stuff like that, but I think that the stuff is so flimsy that has come out so far. I just don't see that. I don't see this actually ending up as a serious issue for ExxonMobil. I mean, I think this is something that is, you know, a rallying cry for the left, and that's why she said it. You know, because she's trying to burnish her progressive credentials on the campaign trail. But I mean, unless there's a lot more here, you know, it's not something that I really see as becoming a major problem for ExxonMobil, unless, of course, you know, you have somebody like Bernie Sanders who wins the White House, and then there might be some problems.
Yeah, exactly. That perish the thought of that. Yeah. Well, and I speaking of winning the White House, I can't imagine if this is what she's doing now, just as a candidate, and going after individuals, because again, it so conveniently looks like it's just right after they stop giving her money, she decides to go after them. I can't imagine what this would turn into if she was elected.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, when you have something like the Clinton Foundation, this is going to keep being an issue for her because they have taken so much money from corporations. I mean, you have just almost this endless, you know, appearance of pay to play. You know, when is she doing things to benefit people who are giving to the foundation? Is she doing things to, you know, go after people who maybe aren't giving to the foundation? You know, even if she's not, if that isn't actually her intention, you do have the appearance for that, and that's a real problem in politics. And the Clintons haven't showed any indication. In fact, the opposite. They said that the foundation will still be around if Hillary Clinton is elected, and you know, it will probably be run by Chelsea. But, you know, the idea that you could be serving in the White House and have something like this, you know, the possibilities for corruption there just...
It definitely speaks to massive impropriety, for sure. Alana Goodman, Washington Free Beacon, great piece. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Thanks. Take care.